Moving on to our next session, how the digital, social, mobile generation is impacting media strategies. Of course, marketers are earmarking budgets up to almost 45% for digital marketing, and the conservative brands up to about 8 to 10%. We have an August panel here with us. Request you to please take your seat as and when you hear your name being called out. Mr. Abhijit Saxena, founder and CEO, Mobilox. Mobilox, of course, focuses on designing and executing complete mobile strategies for companies founded. He founded his next company, Driving Minds Innovations Private Limited, to provide services on social media, digital and mobile. Abhijit has also featured in the Impact Top 100 Digital Personalities 2013. Mr. Vikram Sakhuja, Global CEO, Maxus. Mr. Sakhuja is the Global CEO of Maxus. He leads an agency that believes in leaning into change, something he's enjoyed doing over the past 26 years in marketing at Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Star TV, and Group M. Group M that he led into becoming India's largest and most integrated awarded one-stop shop for marketing investment. In Maxus, he sees a young, agile agency with a digital DNA that can challenge status quo for brands responsibly. Welcome, Mr. Sakhuja. Mr. Ashish Kashyap, founder and CEO, Ibibo Group. Ibibo Group has properties like goibibo.com, redbus.in, and of course, Travel Boutique. Prior to founding Ibibo Group, Ashish was the country head of Google India, wherein he set up the India-facing operations from ground upwards. Before joining Google, Ashish founded e-commerce business at indiatimes.com. We also have Mr. Salil Kapoor, Chief Operating Officer, Dish TV. Mr. Kapoor has a vast experience over 20 years in consumer durables, consultancy services, engineering industry, in diverse organizations. The career highlights include turnaround of LG's home appliance business through innovative and aggressive marketing. He moved on to Microsoft to build up the consumer audience business.
Good evening, everybody. One key point which actually came from one of the panelists was that I don't think that we should actually discuss about this media as that it is new media any longer. That it is actually a medium which has been existing for quite some time now. It has seen a lot of ups and downs. It has seen a lot of transition happening. It has seen a lot of growth happening. It has seen a lot of experimentation happening on this medium. And today, we are far more knowledgeable about this medium than we have ever been before. And not only knowledgeable, but it's actually been the kind of interest that we see out there in the market amongst marketers, amongst agencies, amongst brand owners, among business owners, and etc., that they are all, and not only business owner, very interestingly, even the political scenario, the political parties. So one of my company, actually Driving Minds, represents one of the political parties on social media, and the kind of attention that we have from that party, and that party had never known about social media earlier, and they actually came up and started doing that. So the kind of interest that they have, the inquisitiveness, is actually amazing. What we thought that we would actually do today is actually start from where the discussions on digital media, social and mobile were left earlier, and where is it that we are now. So we are not really going to talk about how this medium actually developed and what was it. So what we will do as a format now is maybe I will request each of the panelists, and including myself, to speak a little bit about where their specific digital platform which they actually represent today on the panel is, what are the interesting things that that platform is really doing, and what are the kind of experiences that they have before we move on to the next stage of that. So Salil, can I request you to actually start?
Sure.
Really tell us that this whole digital television, so always we have heard of the traditional media as television, right? So we always thought that the biggest of the budgets is actually used on television. But there is another segment in television, which is the DTH television, right? Which is actually emerged and is actually offering some very, very exciting opportunities. So if you could let us know a little bit about that platform and how has it emerged? What is the unique points of that platform and how you have seen it grow?
Sure. Thanks, Abhijit. I think I agree with you, and we all agreed while we were discussing it outside that there's no debate about the new media versus the old media or the traditional media. There's nothing like new media now. The online, the digital, and the digital TV as a media, and next will be the mobile phone. They're all here, and it's all about finding how you're going to use those options, how you're going to leverage those opportunities. Now coming to your point specifically about the DTH or the digital TV as a media, look at the numbers. There are about 135 million TV households in this country and about 120 million CNS households, and DTH is already about 60 to 65 million households. We ourselves are the Asia's largest, about 16 million households. Now the difference between a typical advertising on a TV channel and looking at DTH TV there's a difference there. It's not TV, it's whole platform. So it's a bouquet of channels, or it's a whole pipe that you own when you go on this kind of platform. So the same things that you do there that is advertised on TV channels is not something which is going to work out here. For example, you don't need to come out to this kind of a medium with 30 seconders that you can happily do on the regular TV advertising. What you can look at is longer format, which is maybe half an hour, maybe 15-minute kind of editorials where you engage. So it's about the bombardment of spots versus the engagement. So there are huge options. We have options like where people are just going on and having a set of boxes placed at the dealer networks so that they can train the people, they can talk to the people on a regular basis. So this is a medium not only for advertising but also for training. There are people who use, for example, somebody was asking me the other day, the standard question my advertising teacher asked me the first time I entered that class is, do you remember the ad which came on the leading newspaper of your city today? And honestly, I didn't remember the front page ad which was on there. I'm sure most of you here also will not remember that. But please understand, whoever was the advertiser paid more than 1 crore for that. So is there engagement happening in that media now? The times are changing, and I'm sure a lot of media companies and the planners are evolving. I think it's a matter of time before all the marketeers look at the different options available and leverage different opportunities to circle around and build up their brand.
So there are two very interesting points that you actually made. One is training. Can you elaborate that a little bit more as to how, and if you have a specific example which you can quote and tell us how that happened?
Yeah, sure. So it all started when we are a typical FMCG or FMCD kind of a business. We have a distributor and a dealer, and above that we have a regional team and a state team and a frontline sales team. So whatever you plan at the top end, the moment it reaches the retail point, it gets diluted, and it sometimes gets changed also because it moves on from 6-7 places. So we thought this is a complicated kind of offer. How do we reach out to our retailers directly? And there are about 60,000 of them. So how do we do that? So while we were thinking, we struck on this point. We have an advantage. We have this platform. All these retailers have our connection. They watch their TV through our connection. Why don't we dedicate one channel only for this, and we all go on air and launch our offer and do it in multi-language. That is, we did English, we did Hindi, we did Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam, so that people could, understand and relate. The far interior village retailer could also understand what we're talking about, and it had a huge effect. And then we now are talking to one consumer durable company which wants to run on this kind of a channel their complete editorials, not only 30 seconds, but the complete 30-minute kind of program, how a product works. And then they want to come on air now and then, once in a month, to train their floor salesmen who are in the consumer durable shops. So it's as I said, it's not a medium which is only for 30 seconds. It's how you effectively leverage the strength of the medium. And I think a lot of marketeers and media planners are getting around that, and they're opening up to it.
So you're basically saying that don't restrict yourself to 30 seconders. Actually use a longer format for. So do you think that's something what the audience will consume?
I think the audience is looking for engagement, and I think the audience will consume whatever interesting content that they have.
Okay. Okay, so let me get to you, Ashish. You actually handle a plethora of digital platforms, right? you have seen a tremendous amount of transition happening, and you have been there almost right from the beginning of this whole digital era happening. Tell us, where are we right now on this whole digital platform, and what is that big change that you have actually seen?
Okay, thanks. So before I start, a question to my fellow panelists. So Salil, how many recharges do you do online, pure play now? What percentage would that be?
Ashish, we are 100% prepaid platform,
Yeah, so
there could be about 4 to 5 million recharges happening every month.
What percentage would that be?
And that's 100% online or on mobile.
Okay, so I think that's a big transition, and my assumption.
There's no physical currency. We stopped it about 3 years ago.
Sure, and my assumption is that, you know, and this is just taking off from your question, that 5 years ago or 7 years ago this was different, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I think that speaks volumes of the fact that the way the media has got transitioned, where the consumers of this media are actually using the power of technology and internet to basically buy the subscriptions or recharge their or top up basically. Coming to your question, I think essentially if you really look at it, the way we look at internet as a media is that there are different categories. For example, today's date you have Google. The purpose of Google for us, rather the Google search for us, is performance marketing. And then you have something like YouTube. The purpose of that is brand building. You also have the television medium, which whether it is buying a Times Now or buying time on IPL, that's another format of media. But what I'm trying to say is that the big transition which has happened, where we used to think of buying secondage, that has transitioned to you're buying, at the end of the day, data, metrics and performance, measurability. So as we mature, at least us being an internet company running multiple consumer-facing travel brands like Redbus and Go Ibibo, for us, whether we advertise on Times Now or whether we use YouTube, it's not about buying seconds, it's not about buying square centimeter space, which was in the past the way an advertiser would typically buy. And I think most of the purchase in the past, I'm sure a lot of people from the physical media world out here, 70% of that purchase used to happen emotionally, 30% rationally. I think there's a total switch where 80% of it is rational. There is a bit of emotion involved when you are doing these kind of transactions. So the key point that I'm trying to make is that the transition has happened to measurability. So as an example, when we today's date buy television, we actually track what is the quality score improvement on our search queries. And that's so very well trackable and correlated. And I think now, unlike us, which we consider ourselves as an evolved marketeer, because we are in this space, I think companies like Maxus and many others are looking at this from an integrated prism. So I think that's the massive transition which has happened. And I think, you know, with Salil's data, and I'll give you guys another data point. I don't know how many of you know, but online classifieds is now a bigger business than newspaper classifieds.
Yeah.
Matrimonial online, real estate online, autos online is a much bigger business online. I think that speaks volumes of this massive transition which has already happened. Travel businesses that I run online is a bigger business than what happens in the brick world. So I think, you know, clearly as we talked about outside of this room, there's really no debate that that it's actually this whole integrated media has already happened.
So that's an interesting point, and one of the points that you actually made. So one point that I want to check, that you specifically talked about Google and YouTube, and if you look at the platforms which are available, it's those big daddies, like those 3-4 big daddies who are there, which is the Google and the Facebook and the YouTube, and maybe even Twitter, and let's see what happens with WhatsApp and etc.
Yeah.
But that's very limited, no?
Yeah.
That you actually have only 3 or 4 such platforms.
Yeah.
So do you think that this is the thing that we think about the future, or is it that you think that more platforms will emerge, or there are more solutions which will emerge, or so what's going to happen?
So I think that's a great question. So unlike the offline media, where there was a bit of protectionism for the local entrepreneurs to develop their media vehicles, right, in the past. For example, I think news channels still, if I'm not mistaken, do have some protection or some preferences given to local entrepreneurial ecosystems. So the Great Wall of China didn't really happen in our country. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Great Wall of China context to internet, but if you go to China today's date, there is no YouTube, there is a local, there's a local videos product. There is no WhatsApp, there is this biggest Weixin with 350 to 400 million users, right? Similarly, there's no Facebook, right? There are at least 6 local social networks out there.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen in a country like ours. Now, because that didn't happen, the developer ecosystem didn't chase the development of such activities. There was a bit of a scramble and effort back in 2006, but I think it's really hard always to fight a global network effect versus a local network effect. This is not like transactional properties like Red Bus, etc. This is like global network effect. Your friends and relatives and relationships could be all across the world. So I think very rightly so, you say, what you say is right. I think as marketeers, our challenge today's date is that we have to bid on a very set specific media vehicles, and we would be as marketers more than willing to see many more developers and publishers, local publishers coming up and building scale. I think that's going to happen with the next 100 million users as they get embraced onto the web, when they will produce applications and content in local languages and with deep, deep local context.
So in fact, there is one more related question to exactly that. So there is it more tedious, more risky, much more challenging to actually create a digital large daddy property, like which could actually stand in competition with any of these big daddies in the country, as compared to even traditional media? So just to explain the question, is it tougher than launching a television news channel to actually launch a digital platform which could compete with these kind of big daddies who are already there?
Yeah, it's a great question you ask, right? So I'll give you 2-3 examples, right? So what happens when you launch a magazine, with due respect to all magazine publishers here, or you launch a niche newspaper or even a niche TV channel, right? The TV channel salesperson pitches at Vikram's office and says, you know, it's a great channel, great content, and there is a bit of emotion involved in him making that purchase. However, what happens with internet is every piece is measurable. Even, of course, we're now trying to measure television also, though it's still in an analog form, but on the internet, because everything is measurable, it's like you're without clothes, right? As the owner of that media vehicle, it's really, really hard for a very niche kind of a player to really monetize. So I think it's going to be always a challenge. I think on the second point, let me tell you, I have data. It's tough to articulate in this, but there are, if I look at a lot of world with, you know, reach channels, and then I look at a world with a lot of niche channels, you know, there are media vehicles, I won't name them, on the internet today's date, which can reach much better than television, and many of the news channels, English mainline news channels, the reach, in terms of reach and in terms of cost per reach and in terms of efficacy and in terms of, you know, getting your efficiencies going, some of the internet media vehicles are much, much more efficient and they're measurable. So I think to your question, it's very, very hard to just build something small on the internet.
Okay, great. So in fact, there's one more point which you made, which was on integrated platforms now and integrated approach. In fact, we have a very interesting case study that we are working on right now for a client. He's a high-end pest control client, and the main purpose for that client now is actually shifting from, and this category is actually a service category. So it is not a product that he's selling, it is not an FMCG, which is impulse purchase. Actually, it requires a lot of decision making and etc. And the consumer actually goes through multiple elements of that. And what we have seen this time is that the central point for that client is getting the consumers engaged with his brand and with his service. When he says that I want them engaged, I can't do that through television and the money that I've been spending on television, the money that I have been spending on radio, and the money that I've spent on print and etc., I can't get that engagement. For the engagement, I have to have the whole digital element put into it, which is either through mobile or web and etc. What the client actually, and we have experiencing it for the first time. I don't know whether this will go forward. I'm sure it will depend a lot on the successes and etc. But it looks like somewhat a kind of a trend where the client actually told us that make engagement central, which means that we drive it, make everything else peripheral. So which means that the mobile and digital is actually central. Everything else, which means the print ads, will be driven by you. The TV ads, what we tweak it, will be driven by you. The radio commercials that we'll do will be driven by you. You actually draw a plan across social, digital, mobile to bring in that engagement and drive everything around it to make sure that you get that kind of engagement. It's a very interesting kind of a case study that we have just started working on, and let's see how the results actually come out. But that is a sort of a very interesting shift in the mindset of a client that we actually witnessed this time. So coming to Vikram, so there is a lot of things that we are actually saying that right now from the platform perspective and the owners of that digital platform perspective. Do you subscribe to that idea that new media is actually not new any longer, that it is something that has now become a very integral part of the plans that the client or the agencies make?
Undoubtedly. And I think right now the discussion is just about how to accelerate this. About 5-6 years back, digital was maybe 2 to 3% of the ADX. Today it will be about 6, 7, 8%. And globally it stands at about 20% at a total global level. I suspect that the potential of India today would be closer to 12, 13%. I think that's the real opportunity. It is possible here and now, overnight, with the ecosystem in place, to actually move to that. Question is, yes, it's been moving well, it's growing faster than other mediums, but what will it take for us to leapfrog and actually reach what maybe other people are doing? For which I think there's a context required. And 10 years back, there used to be interruption. The entire game was show ads, people will see them, and it was all an awareness-led game. So it was really interrupt them in advertising, and that's how it's going to move. Then we started talking about this entire stuff which Salil and even you were talking about, which is engagement. And that's when you see content coming in and you're seeing a whole lot of role of other things happening which make life a little bit more sticky and make it interesting for the consumers to view stuff. But I think now, if you really want to take the digital potential to its reality, you should start talking interruption to engagement to marketing ecosystem. And Ashish actually just talked about that. For marketers to truly start viewing their life and saying, I have a marketing ecosystem available to me, which has got TV, print, radio, DTH TV, it's got the entire piece of digital in it, and within digital, social, mobile, search, display, the works. I think ability to look at this system play, ecosystem play. Ecosystem is what? Self-sustaining organic system, and this is what it is. And I think our ability to shift gears and think of ecosystem fundamentally can take it from 7, 8% to 12%. I think one of the fundamental switches that you've got to take in your mind is, truth be told, you go to a marketer today, he'll still come out with marketing guidelines which are share of voice based, maybe reach frequency based, but all of these are effectively what? They are a throwback to a 1890s notion of awareness, interest, desire, action. So you can't be talking about awareness and a very old IDA model, where probably the more relevant one is, it's been spoken other ways. McKinsey calls it that entire consumer journey. Whether and they talk of it in terms of consideration, evaluation, purchase, experience, advocacy, and loyalty. The ability to think that any consumer is going to be faced with one of these decision areas in any communication process, and the ability now that the digital market allows, you don't need to know any longer spray or just give a mass broadcast, but you can actually address discrete segments with discrete needs. You're actually talking of unlocking the levers in a consumer's mind, and if there's a consideration about your brand issue, about the brand, there are 10 digital options that you can actually do. Likewise evaluation, likewise the rest. I think it's the ability to watch it in this particular, with this prism, which can change the entire dynamics of how people actually exploit digital.
So tell me, so like you mentioned that how to accelerate this, right? And that 12 to 13% is where it is standing right now, and how to actually take that, leapfrog that and take that to the next level. Are there specific client category or industry verticals which are actually driving something like this much more than some of the other ones? So which are the typical ones who are actually, so let's say if I take this medium as 12 to 13%, right? Who are the kind of clients who are actually contributing much more than 12 to 13% to a medium like this? And when you said that actually integrating the full element to it, who are the kind of clients or industry category who are actually way below?
Mobile, auto, BFSI.
So say that again so that I can note down and go to those clients tomorrow. Yeah, tell me again.
So you can go to tech, you can go to auto, you can go to the, I'm right now loosely putting the handset manufacturers and all in tech, but you can put them in whichever category you want.
Yes.
And then it gets into the entire, sorry, I said again. There was tech, there was the entire, well, mobiles, it is the BFSI. BFSI is actually lagging the most in this particular area. I think this auto is another one which has embraced it pretty well. And anywhere, right now retail just hasn't taken off, modern retail just hasn't taken off to the level that we would like to think, but you can already see the e-tailing is obviously now that's their bread and butter. So some of these sectors have really truly embraced it. I think when it comes down to even FMCGs, if you have to look at the Unilevers of this world, they're clearly also showing the way as to how it can be done. This entire paid, owned, earned concept. Obviously it lends itself well to purchase, so the entire transaction piece, the experience piece, the evaluation piece, it lends itself very well to them. But it also will lend itself pretty well to consideration, to advocacy, to entire loyalty. So even these phases, which are typically the FMCG spaces, it lends itself well to that.
And who are the huge laggards in this, who still haven't got this?
At a sector level, I'd say BFSI probably more than the rest. Because just that it's so ripe for the taking out there.
No, I meant the laggards who have not understood.
I would say, actually, I went and named almost all. I said telecom and BFSI, I think probably can do a better job right now. Telecom, to my mind, is again ripe for this, but they just haven't, and they've done it okay. I think it's just about 9–10%. But something like telecom should be doing it.
Telecom is actually huge on at least VAS, and we see a tremendous amount of, and telecom is also on VAP advertising. We see actually telecom is amongst the largest. Handset guys are amongst the largest on VAP advertising, so they are actually focused on that because it is a CPC kind of a model which works there, so it works brilliantly well for them.
Yeah, if I have to look at my telecom clients in markets like Italy and UK, or for that matter, Barclays is one of our clients. So how they operate in the UK and US, the way they've embraced digital is profound.
Okay.
I would, yeah. It's always a great learning whenever you interact with Vikram. So the sector-specific point is, of course, very valid. But I have a slightly different experience here, Vikram, if I may. It's not about sectors. It's about the marketeers, and it's about their position in the brand journey at that point of time. It's about the marketing objectives at that point of time. For example, I met a e-tailer, a tech company, and told them that you are a tech brand and we are a tech medium, so let's rock. So he said, no, you know, our objective right now is just so that everybody knows our brand right now, so I would rather buy some spots on IPL and be safe. E-tailer going on a traditional medium and just buying some spots in a random manner, in a spraying manner, what Vikram said is exactly what he said. And so it's not sector at times. There is, coming to your fertilizer example, so there's a fertilizer client, and it could be as old, you know, brick and mortar thing as it could be, talking to us, we're saying, I want to run a campaign which is purely on engagement. I want to have my own contact center where people will call me up, and I want to go on your platform and do a 30-minute, you know, magazine on agri-active every week, going out and reaching people and telling them what are the different things that they can do. And I don't want to advertise, I've done enough of it. I just want to engage them, they will call me up and we'll sell them solutions. So this is, for example, there's a beauty product company and a cosmetics company which is talking to us to generate a beauty and a health and a fashion active service. So it is actually the marketing objective at that point of time rather than a sector specific issue.
So interestingly,
I just want to add I think on the sector wise, if you look at an auto advertiser, the way he measures how many leads did I get, even though he'll do brand advertising, and the same way with the banking guys, right? But I think the challenge is that there's some education which needs to be done where these guys need to understand the benefits of branding using the digital medium or using DTH as a medium, and that education still needs to be done. And once that happens, the friction amongst the marketer is going to be lesser. Unlike that, if you look at today's date, FMCG clients, why do you think FMCG spend, Vikram, would be still less than 6% on online?
Thereabouts.
Yeah, so, and not 10, 12, 13%, given that, you know, they have the right audiences, is really because FMCG companies pretty much actually across the globe haven't figured out what should be the metrics, right? For television, they know it's ratings, and for newspaper, they know there's a metrics. But for internet, beyond, let's say, doing a contesting activity and seeing what's the kind of registrations which happen, but there's obviously life beyond that, they haven't still kind of correlated that. And I think that really needs to happen. And once, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, every spender needs to justify why he spent that $100 US, $100. And for some of these marketing categories, that articulation hasn't happened, and that leap needs to happen.
On the measurement piece, if I may, I'm very optimistic, and I hope that digital can spark off a revolution of sorts. Truth be told, in the 25 odd years that I've been practicing media, we always talk about media's effectiveness and efficiency, but truth be told, efficiency is being put under an electron microscope and effectiveness has been given a glossed over. Your people are talking output, they're not talking outcome. Now, digital allows us the ability to actually talk outcome. And up till now, there was arcane marketing ROI, marketing mix models, and a healthy distrust of maybe the data going in and the black box model, which were preventing effectiveness and ROI from being properly embraced. What digital does is actually demystify the black box and actually allow a whole lot of lead indicators to emerge, which can actually, the entire aspect of attribution or trying to see what leads to what, and therefore which led to the final purchase, that becomes visible to all. And I think that's huge. And I think our ability to then, and underpinning all of this is data and what we do with it. But I am really, really hopeful that in the next 10 years, efficiency will have had enough, and now we really start talking effectiveness.
So it's a great point that you made about output versus outcome, right? Because the example that I mentioned earlier about this pest control client, he actually said exactly the same thing, that, you know, my campaign on television has garnered fantastic GRP. So the output was fantastic for his campaign, but there's been literally no outcome of that campaign. And that's the reason why he wanted to change the whole, go through this paradigm shift and say that I am now actually worried about the outcome, because everybody is able to justify that the money that you spent generated fantastic GRP, but where was the outcome? So that actually brings me to the next question, which is about this metrics and measurement. So Salil, what is the kind of metrics that you offer to the clients now, which are slightly different from the regular TRP data which is given by the traditional channels?
Well, the measurability, as Vikram said, truth be told, in every medium is under a lot of discussion these days. So we don't have any TRPs and we don't have any other such kind of data, but yes, there are IRS readings which place us, which give us that number of homes that we are present. We are a listed company, so we share our numbers openly. One can share the simple thing that how many people logged in, and if you have a call to action, it builds up your own way to measure it. And that's how we challenge our marketers or our advertisers, that this is not, don't treat it as a GRP model. We are not. If you're looking for a spraying model for 30 seconds, you should not spend on us. You want to build engagement, find out, let's together work out metrics on that, please work on that. You're looking at building up a response, come on with a call to action, build up a response. So there are different things that can work out for different people. There's no set platform for that.
And what about you, Ashish?
Yeah, I mean, as a marketer, for me, we measure everything to the T, absolutely to the T. A lot of it is obviously your own IP that you create as a company. But some of the big highlights for us is to see that how much of the traffic is directly coming into your shop, organic, direct type in, right, onto the browser. And that we can correlate. Besides this, we also correlate with the demand patterns of users, and then what is the quality score against those demand patterns. We obviously look at we look at Google and Facebook and Twitter as a good proxy. So we figure out that are our brand queries increasing? Are people beginning to talk about our brand on mediums like Facebook and Twitter? We cull that data all out real time, and we actually correlate with the media vehicle, which may not be directly measurable, to see that is there a correlation between the two, and actually the ratings that the channel is talking about, is that true or not true, and if that particular thing works. And as a result, we are able to optimize not just the direct internet medium, but also all the above the line television type of media also. But it's something which we actually build in-house totally, and that's what we believe is our secret sauce. And I'm sure at the scale that of any company at our scale has to do this.
So Vikram, tell me, so the kind of metrics that they talked about, right, is that exciting for you, or that you're looking at something more to be actually given for that leap of faith to happen even much larger?
I think it's exactly on these lines. And I just don't think enough people are asking the questions that, say, Ashish is right now talking about, and then investing in actually making sure they get the answers. The part which I would like to just talk about is a little bit more granular, which is in the area of the quality of the data itself. I think as we are talking about measurement of some kind becoming the holy grail, which will tell us how effective things are, it's important that that base, the granular data, is correct. There is some amount of doubt in the world out there that is that impression really a true impression, and it starts with that. So, and I think the ability, and there is too much of the publisher publishing his own data. So the ability to have absolutely undisputable impression data, I think, becomes very critical. And number two, I think, is the entire ability to then actually start capturing cookie level data with some degree of robustness and privacy, with all kind of ethics built in. The problem that we face today is in India, clients are not even willing to spend on serving ad serving the data or the campaigns. In which case your basic data is right now not being generated to the level that you'd like to. Now, at this point in time, if you're spending more, it's a chicken and egg kind of thing. They're saying we are spending 30 lakhs, so the ad serving costs are working out to a sizable sort of percent of the entire thing, so we will not do that. So we will buy it like we buy a magazine. Fine, then in that case you have to live with the kind of data that you get from magazines. So I think that's the point. Now, if you're willing to, if you really believe there is a future to this, you should start investing behind it and capture the data, start doing things with the data, and then you'll suddenly see it working harder for you, and your spends will go up, and the ROI will be intact.
And if you look at the success of AdWords, right? AdWords
precisely
really pushed us as advertisers to say that you have to put the tracking code. I mean, there's no other option of serving, and you have to put the tracking code. So it went and told you straight away at the first level, what's your CPC, where do you stand, and second, it went and told you, what's happening after the CPC. And it forced you to do that, and otherwise an advertiser wouldn't really renew, right? Why would he come back to a particular media?
So one more question to you, Vikram, is that in the traditional media, there's a third party, and we know that there's a lot of debate and discussion which is happening on that third party, that they are the ones who's actually generating independent data, right? In this case, what is literally happening is that the media itself is generating that data and giving to the client. So is there some bit of conflict of interest, or that you feel that there is a little bit of a question mark on the credibility of the data which comes to you from, because that's being generated by media itself, while on traditional media there's a third party who is doing it?
To some extent, yes. And so I think, and the other one is, there are also, for the same piece of data, there are multiple sources actually capturing it. So even, I mean, currently, even on social listening, you could be having what, radian 6, SISMOS, and I don't know how many more that you can actually pick up for picking up the same data. So now, some of these lead to too much data also creates confusion. I think the ability to simplify all of that and then come out with one sort of, like I said, non-partisan, inviolate, very, very respected data